So this came out December 30th, 2020, before the January 6th crap. The following is a summary of the fifth session of the Congressional Study Group on Foreign Relations and National Security, a program for congressional staff focused on critically engaging the legal and policy factors that define the role that Congress plays in various aspects of U.S. foreign relations and national security policy. Excuse me. On July 31st, 2020, the Congressional Study Group on Foreign Relations and National Security convened online to discuss the President's authority to deploy military domestically, including through the Insurrection Act. Weeks prior to the session, President Donald Trump had deployed both the military National Guard units and federal law enforcement personnel in response to popular protests around the country, often over objection by state and local officials. But what was the legal basis for the president's actions? And what might Congress be able to do if it believes that the president's actions are inappropriate? Well, and that's the damn thing is when all these protests were happening earlier this year, all the policy, all the government officials and stuff, like, no, there's nothing wrong with it. But, when the politicians get stormed or whatever else, just leave, just try and, be direct about this, if, the Capitol got stormed and everything, and it's like, oh, so apparently, it is okay to deploy troops because, well, this is the right wing. These are right wingers in it. Anyways, so to discuss these timely and important issues, the study group was joined by two outside experts with deep knowledge in this area. Professor Steve Vladek of the University of Texas at Austin School of Law, and Michael Paradis of Columbia Law School and the Military Commission Defense Office. They circulated several recommended resources as background reading in events of the session, including Michael Paradis and Scott R. Anderson. Can Trump use the Insurrection Act to deploy troops to American streets? That was in June 2020. Gentil Hernandez, Insurrection Act, what you need to know. On the brink of the Insurrection Act. Why we're out of state National Guard units in Washington, D.C. The Justice Department's troubling explanation. Are the Trump administration's actions importantly legal? Are they constitutional? We're going to check out that one here in this. Was it that why we're out of the state National Guard units in Washington, D.C.? Well, and then that was in June 9th of 2020. So it's almost like everything that's happening right now has been organized, huh? The study group coordinator Scott R. Anderson also circulated a handout download here with some information on relevant legal authorities for attendees' reference. Curtis began the conversation with some background on the Insurrection Act, which is the most widely cited legal authority relating to the president's authority to deploy the U.S. military domestically. Enacted in 1807 as an addendum to prior statutes authorizing the use of militias, the original Insurrection Act authorized the use of the standing military in cases of foreign invasion as well as in response to internal insurrection at the request of state authorities. Congress later amended it following the Civil War and the enactment of the 14th Amendment in order to allow for the use of military to enforce federal law against or over the objections of state authorities, but only to enforce certain constitutional rights, or where the president determines that rebellion or similar conditions make it impractical to enforce the law through normal means. Kind of like Portland, but hey, that was okay, right? A few decades later, Congress also enacted the Posse Comitatus Act to restrict the ability to use federal military forces to enforce the law, absent A few decades later, Congress also enacted the Posse Comitatus Act to restrict the ability to use federal military forces to enforce the law, absent express congressional authorization, in large part as a response to Reconstruction-era military occupation in the South. This increased Insurrection Act's relevance as a statutory exception to this restriction. None of the conditions set forth in the Insurrection Act clearly applied to recent protests. Paradis noted, raising serious legal questions about any effort on the part of the president to invoke the Insurrection Act. In response, while some imprecise language in the Insurrection Act might be read this way, doing so would be in serious tension with the original intent and historical practice surrounding the statute. Ludwig continued by discussing some of the other legal authorities that Trump administration had used or consider using to deploy armed federal personnel in response to the protests. In many areas, he noted, Congress had provided the executive branch with broad authority to use military and federal law enforcement personnel subject to few conditions and limitations, all of which created opportunities for abuse. He noted that the deployment of the state National Guard units to Washington, D.C. earlier in the summer had been pursuant to a previously unnoticed statutory authority that allowed state governors to volunteer National Guard forces to undertake support of operations or missions undertaken by the members' unit at the request of the President or Secretary of Defense. Because these forces were not federalized, however, they were not arguably subject to the Posse Comitatus Act. Interpreting this statute broadly, Ludwig argued, could create a problematic scenario where governors of certain states could volunteer their National Guard forces for activities suppressed by the president of their own party, even where that activity would normally be subject to Posse Comitatus limits. If pursued through more conventional channels, Ludwig noted that federal statutes authorizing law enforcement personnel, and particularly those in the Department of Homeland Security, appeared to be the legal basis for federal officers deployed to Portland and elsewhere in the country, while actions directly related to this authority are likely legally defensible. Using them as pretext for broader actions related to conduct whose regulation is usually left to the states could raise both statutory and constitutional concerns. From there, the study group moved to open discussion, including the ability of the states to reject or resist federal activities that do not believe legally valid, whether judicial remedies are likely to be available, and how relevant statutory authorities might be changed to limit the risk of executive branch overreach. So with all that being said, I mean, it seems like the Insurrection Act has, been implemented. Wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say? So, yeah. Anyways, we're using our own forces. We're using our own forces for because our states are basically useless because of all these friggin' crony, corrupt politicians and this. Well, actually, hold on a second. So, yeah. Trump and Barr used the loophole to deploy National Guard to U.S. So, yeah, I mean, we can't be using the military forces for these peaceful protests. Anyways, yeah, actually, hold on a second. Oh, wow. From Reuters, a U.S. Justice Department official on Friday said there is currently no direct evidence of efforts to capture or assassinate lawmakers in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Oh, yeah, friggin' this fucking racist. This fucking jack-off racist. Mind your busy proud boy. Now you talk about cowards. How do you feel being a proud coward? You're a Proud Boy coward. Why are you calling racist? Look in me and spell it, and then tell me who you see. Speak. And I don't understand Ebonics. I don't understand Ebonics. Ebonics. I don't understand Ebonics. Try again. Try again. Racist. Anyways. Oh, wait. Actually, hold on. Yeah, because this is what I want to find. Just do it! Just do it! So, what is really going on in D.C.? Lynn Woodcall.